Statement. I'm from Ashfield, and I'm here because we're leading this seminar.
What if we get back up? Can I close that door?
Yeah.
I'm Janet Masucci. I'm in Gill, my home and business, and I'm here because I'm a vendor, or whatever you call it, company, registered with rCredits. I've been a consumer registered with rCredits for a while, and I just listed my company, but I haven't done a sale yet.
I'm Sarah Darling. I live in Greenfield, and I'm an accountant. I'm just interested in alternate currencies in general, or alternate everything. Alternate.
I'm on the page of groceries in Belchertown and other places. Here because I think this is the next best thing besides sliced bread. I want to see it work.
I'm Heather. I work at Real Pickles, and I'm an credit user, and I'm here to learn more.
Andy Van Ash, worker owner at Real Pickles. I take part of my wage in our credits, and I don't remember getting the history of money in high school, so I'm kind of curious.
I'm John Root. I'm on the board of Common Good Finance. William calls me the senior policy analyst.
We are. Emily?
I'm Emily Monison, and I'm on the board of Common Good Finance, and I can always learn about money issues. So I'm here to learn as well.
Great. Welcome, everybody. Just to give you an overview of the whole series, last week we did the nuts and bolts, how the mechanics of the system work, which most of you already know anyway. And actually, maybe we will just skip that. Everybody good with just skipping the review of the nuts and bolts, since you already know how all that works? We'll do just one piece, which is the new piece of that. This week we're doing where does money come from, and the history of money and related issues and whatever related things you want to ask about. And then next week we will get into common good democracy. What can we do with our credits as a community now that we have this power to issue something that works like, that circulates like money in our community. So we were going to have everybody have John pretend to be a new member and go through all the motions, but one thing, maybe we'll do it anyway. Hi.
Hi.
No, we won't. Welcome. Please say your name and where you're from and why you're here tonight.
I'm Anna. I live in Greenfield. That's what people were saying.
And why are you here tonight?
I work at Real Pickles. We had the sign on the table, and it sounded interesting.
Ah, good. And it's on a ONA.
O&A.
Dr. Mark,
Good evening.
what's your name, where are you from, and why are you here tonight?
I'm Dr. Mark Wisniewski. I'm from Ottawa, Illinois. But I live locally, and I am here as part of my continuing ed, as you well know. So I haven't missed a meeting. So
You're the only one.
I'm excited to learn tonight. We're going to learn how we're going to get rich on our credits.
Okay, so the one piece that I want to review from last time when we did nuts and bolts is the new, what we just activated, which is an incentive for inviting people. I'll play.
See if this will work.
Let's say I go to Janet with my R card and I buy something.
All right.
Probably for Janet it would be a massage or hypnotherapy or something. But whatever it is, if this is my first purchase, that's when I get my sign-up bonus. And whoever invited me at that point gets $20 in R credits as a invitation bonus. If I then go on to open a company account, let's say Dr. Mark had been the person who invited me. In addition to the sign-up, to the invitation bonus of $20, he then gets a $10 worth of rCredits bonus for every employee of the company that signs up. We're trying to encourage people, to invite people who are in a position to open a company account. So if the company has 200 employees, you could get as much as $2,000 in rewards for getting that company on board. We're hoping that somebody will be interested in doing that. Okay, I'll take this back. That was the one, that was the one piece that most of you won't have experience with yet. But that's now active, and it will be retroactive too for any of you who have already invited somebody and they actually signed up for rCredits. You will be getting a reward for that. What's your name? Where are you from? And why are you here tonight?
Okay, my name is Rachel. I just moved to Conway, back to the area after being gone for about 6 years. I've been following Common Good Finance from a long distance. Interested in...
You aren't Rachel Lindsay, are you?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I'm Rachel Lindsay.
Thank you again
I don't know
for your
who you are.
support.
Oh, yes. Donated to Common Good Finance. Yeah, and I think I want to stick around the area. This sounds like something I want to be part of, so I just came to learn more because I've sort of watched it, but not really paid attention to the details of how it all works recently.
Cool.
So,
Well, we just skipped the nuts and bolts, but if you see me afterwards, I'll show you the nuts and bolts.
okay, sounds good.
What's next?
And you are? Sorry?
I'm sorry, I'm William.
William.
William Spademan. This is John Root. This is everybody else. Okay, we did that. That's not, oh, the brochure. This is also has the nuts and bolts. If anybody hasn't seen this little brochure and would like one, or even if you've already seen it, please feel free to take one or more of those. And now, on to John's introduction to where does the money come from?
Yeah, where does the money come from? This is the big question. So,
Before you do that, let's have Nina introduce yourself.
Hi.
What's your
Nina.
name?
Snuck in.
What's your name? Where are you from? And why are you here tonight?
Hi, everybody. I apologize for being late. My name is Nina. I work with Pioneer Valley Local First.
oh, good.
Yeah, hi. I brought some propaganda. I am very interested in all kinds of alternative economic structures, both in theory and implementing them in practice. That's why I'm here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So I'll leave the light on for a couple of minutes. Where does the money come from is the question. So I'm going to tease you. The dollar and rCredits come from the same place. Now, I think it would be very useful for us to have a common conception of what money is. This video is called The Essence of Money, a Medieval Tale. It's only almost 8 minutes long, so I think we'll watch it first, and then we'll see what we think about it, and then we'll decide which way to go. Okay? Let's hope technology works. Is that in focus?
Pretty good.
In medieval times, just like today, people had problems with money. In those days, gold and silver coins were the universally accepted form of money. Precious metals were used as money because their scarcity made them valuable, even in small quantities. Unfortunately, it also made them scarce. Two other qualities made precious metals useful as money. They didn't spoil, and they did not get consumed. So they were ideal for saving. Unfortunately, the same properties made them ideal for hoarding. Hoarding worsened the problem of scarcity. Those who had wealth beyond their needs could acquire the metal coins and hold on to them, thus depriving everyone else of the money they needed to enable the convenient trading of real goods and services. As a result, though the weekly market always offered a wealth of goods and services to be traded, there was often very little coin available to make trade work efficiently. So, what did medieval folks do to solve their coin shortage problem? They invented market money, and this is how they did it. Each seller had a pretty good idea of what his or her sales would be if sufficient coins were available. Thus, sellers had a basis upon which to issue credit to themselves. This self-issued credit could then be used as money to buy other sellers' wares. People could do this because the participants at the weekly market were both producers and consumers. They went to the market to trade their products, literally. But what happened when the butcher wanted to buy something from the seamstress, but the seamstress wanted something from the shoemaker, not the butcher, and so on? Trading goods and services for other goods and services required coordination of many trades. It often required several steps before a seller could acquire what he or she really wanted to buy. Bartering like this has always been a cumbersome process. That's why money was invented. And sometimes money has to be reinvented. So one day, during an economic slowdown caused by a serious shortage of precious metal coins, that happened. Anton the baker, whose bread was always in demand, could easily count up the people he knew would buy his bread if they had the money. Anton could reliably expect to sell at least 20 silver pennies worth of bread at each market. Therefore, he reasoned, he could safely issue 20 silver pennies worth of Anton's bread vouchers and persuade his fellow sellers to accept this virtual bread in trade for their actual wares. Anton was a good man, trusted by all, so he had little trouble spending his 20 pennies worth of bread vouchers on the wares of other merchants. Most were able to understand the elegance of his idea right away. So those who had traded their wares for Anton's vouchers were, in turn, successful in trading said vouchers for other sellers' goods and services. Because the bread voucher's value was expressed in silver pennies, everyone knew what the voucher was worth relative to everything else. And they knew that every voucher was backed by the abundant supply of Anton's delicious-smelling bread. So Anton's bread vouchers were soon recognized by all as reliable money, based solely on the proven demand for Anton's bread. Throughout the day, Anton's vouchers would be returned to him in exchange for bread. Each voucher had completed a unique journey through the market, some short and some long. And all along the way, the vouchers facilitated trades that had nothing to do with Anton. It wasn't long before other producers began writing vouchers against their products and services. Soon the market was flooded with money in the form of virtual goods and services, all of it backed by the abundance of actual goods and services available at the market. With no shortage of money, everyone had unrestricted opportunity to sell their products or special skills to whatever extent there was real demand for them. This led to general prosperity and happiness. The only purpose silver served in this system was to provide a widely understood measure of value, in the same way that inches and feet, pounds and ounces were necessary for measuring lengths and weights. Anton liked to explain to the amazed people from other markets, no one has ever stopped from building a house due to a shortage of inches. And similarly, no one in this market has ever stopped from making a trade by a shortage of silver pennies. At the end of each market, outstanding vouchers were reconciled amongst the market merchants, with payments made in 3 ways: in product, in vouchers for the next market, or, as a final resort, in coin. This system was very successful. That's because it fulfilled the essential purpose of money. It guaranteed the existence of enough purchasing power to purchase all goods and services in demand.
Watch your eyes. So, during colonial times, the colonies had exactly the same problem.
Do you want to do this piece before asking them?
I was just gonna give a little example of the same thing from American history, and then we'll talk about it. So, and gold and silver coins were what everybody thought of as money, and gold and silver coins would come over here from England, and sometimes they would come from Spain or France or whatever, but they all very quickly went back to England to buy the glass and the manufactured products that they weren't making here. So they had the chronic shortage that the video was talking about. And in America, it wasn't Anton, it was Benjamin Franklin. He went to an Iroquois nation powwow. And in those days, in colonial times, one form of money that, at least the way that the colonists thought about it, was wampum. Now in Indian culture, wampum is used as a mnemonic. So it's a way of remembering the gifts that they give to each other, the treaties that they make, the important events, and you make something out of it. Usually a headband or a thing to put in your hair or a belt or what have you. And so when the colonists would give to the Indian, looking at it from the Indian point of view, would give the Indians, say, a domesticated animal or a knife or maybe even a rifle, the Indian would honor the gift that they received with wampum. So if you look at it from the colonist point of view, the Indians pay them for the knife, right? While Benjamin Franklin is at this powwow, and the chief of the Iroquois nation had learned English, and Ben Franklin had learned some Iroquois, a brave came into the camp, laden down, barely able to count it all. One. And he gave it to the chief, and the chief, Benjamin Franklin, followed him around. The chief went and distributed it to the chiefs of the tribes, who distributed it to the chiefs of the clans. And Ben Franklin is watching this, and the chief looks at him and says, "I know what you're thinking. We don't use wampum as money. We use the money, the wampum, to commemorate all the events. And there always has to be enough wampum to commemorate all of the important gifts that we give to each other and events in our life during the year." So the candle lights up in Benjamin Franklin's head, and he goes, "Oh my God, of course, there always has to be enough money for all the transactions that people want to make." So he went to all the colonies. He wrote a treatise on the utility and necessity of a paper currency, and drew the wrath of the English governors and what have you. And pretty soon all of the colonies issued colonial scrip. And the last bit of the story, and I'll cut it short, but the Bank of England realized that if the colonies were able to issue their own money, they would, in short order, be entirely self-sufficient, and they wouldn't serve the purpose of a colony, which is to enrich the, as you know. And Franklin actually says that it was the bad influence, the actual quote is, bad influence of the bankers on the British Parliament that deprived us of our colonial scrip. When the colonial scrip was banned, the money supply shrank by half. They caused poverty and hatred of the King of England and the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
So, I have a paper where all of this is written. You can take it if you want. That's what money is, right? Money is a unit of value on the one hand, which is abstract, and you know what it's worth from your experience. You grow up with the unit of value, so you know what it's worth. And then there's a device, and the device is whatever we're using, right? It can be anything. It can be wampum, it can be feathers, it can be these huge stones on Easter Island. It can be a robust accounting system. So, I'm curious if anyone has any thoughts or ideas about the video and the Ben Franklin story.
We're also going to ask you all if you have thoughts about how these stories, John's stories and the video apply or don't apply to our current situation today.
I'm thinking that it takes a lot of trust and community for this kind of a system to work. Because, you're saying, I promise that I will make good on this exchange at some point in the future.
Right. One of the things that has happened in our economy that makes it more difficult than the simple stories is that we're not all producers and consumers. Although it is really clear that it isn't agriculture that creates civilization. It's the ability to distribute the agricultural product by money. So the first money is a receipt for grain stored in the warehouse of the pharaoh. So you bring your grain to the warehouse of the pharaoh and you get a receipt for grain, and that's the original money. In fact, David Graeber wrote a book called 5,000 Years of Debt, in which he maintains and demonstrates conclusively there never was water. You do not get civilization until you get money. So money is really powerful in creating civilization, right?
I forgot, we have a new participant. Would you say your name and where you're from and why you're here tonight?
My name is Heather, and I'm from Greenfield, and I participate in the rCredits program. So I was just interested to learn a little bit about the history of money.
Heather Warnemont.
Yeah.
Great. Should we give people more chance to
Yeah, I'd love to.
respond to the
Good.
Well, as a reflection to the dollar, and many people criticize the dollar when they removed the gold standard, which backed every dollar. And then they say that that was the beginning of the end when they removed the backing by the gold, and they just started printing it. Now they print as fast as they can, 24/7. I know a guy who was at the press, it's pretty depressing. No pun intended. intended. But, so, I mean, it's no different. What you're creating here is just a form of exchange, and there is nothing backing it other than the good word. And at least we have the good word of people that you can look across the table and get the good word. Whereas with the government, you can take it from there.
Good. Alan?
So how do you decide how much to make?
Okay.
When they're,
Maybe we should
How do
say
we decide
that
how
we're gonna get to,
continental
we're
currencies,
planning on
so-
dealing with that in
Oh,
specific.
okay.
So maybe we could save that for a moment. Or 15 moments.
Alan?
I have two things. I haven't heard the full faith and credit statement yet. And
What
there's a,
do you mean by that?
well, Ellen Brown says it doesn't matter how much money is out there as long as there are people willing to work to make something and someone willing to buy the product that they make, there will not be inflation. When there's more money chasing scarce goods, then the price goes up. For the gold standard is kind of interesting because if you take this experience that we have life and push it as you might in a calculus analysis, when you push the gold standard to the limit, if there is no life, it doesn't matter how much gold you have. So the only thing that's really valuable is the life of the community that can value these various parts. And so you have to figure out how the community goes together, and I guess I'm not ready to say I know how to judge when there are too many dollars chasing things, but when you see prices start to rise and everybody's fully employed, then you've got too much money in circulation. But, so the full faith and credit, I get one of the things that the English wanted to see, the king wanted, was for his tax money not to come in colonial script, but to come in pound sterling. And if the economy ran a colonial script, and there wasn't any need for pound sterling, there was no way that the colonists could pay in.
Well, except the problem was that because they weren't using pound sterling, there was plenty of pound sterling to pay the taxes. And you still had to use pound sterling in order to buy from England. So there was, it created a situation in which the amount of gold and silver coin that there was could pretty much equal. The colonies started making everything for themselves. I mean, the first thing they did was make glass. Because if you've been to Plymouth Plantation, they didn't have glass. You could only get it from England. This is one of the first things they did. When colonial script was also issued, each of the colonies did it a little bit differently. But in essence, if you wanted to do something, you got two things from the legislature. You got a charter to do what you said you were going to do as a company, limited liability, and you got the money. And the interest that you paid on the loan, which was, and the term of the loan and all those things were tailored to what it was that you were doing. The interest that you paid on the loan that you got from the legislature in colonial script was in lieu of taxes. I mean, they didn't need to tax.
So that's how they would issue money, just like our banks do now.
Right, and there
They
was
issued
no
it as
shortage. The really important thing about colonial script is that because there was no shortage of money, the colonial script took off in the 1730s, and all the colonies were using colonial script. From the 1730s, 32, when the first restriction was made, the colonies grew to an economy that rivaled England. That's what no shortage of money does. The amount of human ingenuity and creativity that was unleashed is incredible. So, who knows where the dollar comes from? Because it's an important piece for understanding our situation.
Do you want to go on to that already?
Well, I don't know.
Well, let's see if there are people that have questions. Actually, there's something I'd like to cover before that.
Okay, go ahead.
At this moment. And Alan has a question. Maybe there's some other people that have questions about what we've seen so far.
Or somewhere else.
I have a question about, so initially the colonial script, how was that distributed? You know, it was made, and then how did it get to people?
Oh, it was borrowed, basically. The legislature made the capital, so to speak, available to buy land and to start businesses, and then it would circulate.
So would they go to a bank, or the legislature would
The
print up a bunch of
legislature-
money and hand the person the actual paper
Yeah.
as a loan,
Right.
and then it would go from there and be distributed,
Yes.
right? So it'd be physical money.
It was physical money. It looked like, I mean, they were.
And it would just start.
It looked like this. And Benjamin Franklin, the history. Yeah, the history tells you that Ben Franklin got to print the colonial script. You go to the Ben Franklin Museum in Philadelphia, and the significance of colonial script is that Ben Franklin got to print it.
Oh, dear.
you get no insight whatsoever into the significance of it. Anyway.
Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they also printed 5% more than they expected to loan out and bought services. The government bought services like improvement of a road or building a dam
Yeah,
or bridges or
that's true.
schools or something. And that 5% was the money that would pay the interest for all of the borrowing.
Oh, so there was enough.
There
out
was
there.
enough money.
Seems way
Oh,
ahead.
that's amazing.
Am I?
Wow.
Okay, well, you can shut me off. I
No,
want to
no.
talk about one other thing though, and that is, what does interest do when the bank is owned outside the region?
Right, so that's what I wanted to get to first, but I want to hear from William first.
While we're still on the subject of how does this apply to us, I wonder if it's clear to people how this applies to our credits. This explanation of where money comes from. Is that clear to you all, or would you like to have it laid out more explicitly?
Well,
I'd like it more laid out.
okay, in the video, the agreement is implicit, right? In the video that, in the essence of money video, the agreement to accept the self-issued credit, right, is implicit. And in our credits, it's very explicit. You know, we spell it all out. You go through that agreement, and we're asking you, basically, to not consider yourself a consumer and just be self-interested, but to consider yourself a citizen of the new economy and society that we're wanting to create. So it's sort of fundamentally different than what happens with the self-issued credit like that. It's much more conscious.
We also are, in a sense, one step beyond the last step in the video, where everybody was issuing their own certificates. What we're doing in the rCredit system instead is all issuing the same certificate and say, we'll all accept that one. That's what the agreement is.
Yeah.
Is we're saying, I will both issue these and accept these.
What's described in the video lasted for a couple of years. The market would issue the money as you walked into the market for what you had, and everybody used the same money. And in medieval times, the city-states were so the city-state was in a princedom, but it was sort of independent. So the point that I want to make about it, because you go on and on and on about the history, and discovered that people had figured out that during medieval times, people worked about 14 weeks in the whole year, out of the whole year, in order to provide for their material needs. And they spent the rest of the time doing what? Going on pilgrimages, going on crusades, being in monasteries, and being nobles. So no shortage of money, which is what the video is really all about. What happens when there's no shortage of money? We spend all our time on culture. And that has been demonstrated. Oh, they built cathedrals. I mean, what did they do? They didn't slave away.
Another little piece about what may be different in the rCredits system that might not be obvious is that since we're using US dollars integrated into the system, it's like this if people had been trading silver pennies for their market money, right? But also, we're, in a sense, if they were doing that, and also in what we're doing, you're not really issuing the currency when that happens, when you're just trading official currency for it. It's just sort of a temporary stand-in for the official currency. So in the rCredit system, when we issue an incentive reward, we are really issuing an alternative currency there. We're not just trading.
And the real
Official
alternative
currency
is just
for
the extras.
Right.
That's all you're doing.
Right. And in our design,
Incentives.
you can't cash those. You can't trade those for US dollars. You can't go back the other way. You can't go either way
Right.
for those incentives. They're only given, and you can't trade them for US dollars.
So,
They have to circulate.
But yeah.
so to oversimplify, it's like a prepaid debit card that you have, that you can spend around. You put your own money in. You get some incentives that you could spend in the system, but if you choose to withdraw, you only take out the money that you put in.
Or the money you got paid.
Right, right, the money,
Either one.
So,
is that right?
yeah, yeah. So the other piece that is really important is that we're actually issuing all the rCredits that are issued. So if you trade dollars, right, for rCredits, the dollars are sitting in the escrow account. And we issue the rCredits and put them in your rCredits account.
Currently,
So-
$58,000 we have in an escrow account sitting, waiting for us to consider whether it would be safe to spend those on something, since they're just sitting there. As a community, we could make that decision.
Right, and that's the significance of what we're trying to do.
And that's what next week is about.
Right. We're at the very, very beginning of creating the whole new world.
I don't know if
Rachel?
maybe part of my question was answered before I got here, so my apologies. But, so I just, without seeing or knowing like a list of the businesses that are currently in our credits, like the market analogy, to me, sort of like one level of the economy, right? It's the final consumer with all of the finished products, so all the value added. So there's no like, that market example is, there's no raw materials, right? It's like the people that produce the grain to create the bread aren't necessarily at the market, like they might be, but, so I guess my question was sort of like, is this model, is there like a trickle down? Is there like a potential that you could, like, as a vendor at the market, also buy all of your inputs through this type of a system?
That's certainly where we'd like to go with our
Like
credits.
rCredits.
We designed our credits not as a complementary currency really, but as a currency that could start as a complementary currency, working alongside the mainstream, but ultimately as a candidate for a replacement economy. Right? It's something that if it grew enough, we could use this system where decisions are made at the community level instead of the current economy where decisions are made in corporate boardrooms.
But essentially that sort of, the selection of what different businesses or what raw materials would fall within that currency in our credits case is determined
create economic circles ongoing. So we have to get the suppliers of Greenfield's Market to participate. We need to get the employees to participate so that Greenfield's Market has places to spend the rCredits that it receives, that people pay.
And this is why this new piece that we just started this past week is so important, is that it's our current strategy for bringing in more businesses, not directly, but by inviting people, encouraging people to invite